Welcome back, everybody. I know we're still in the season, Super Bowl's right around the corner, but I don't think it's ever too early to start mock drafting. So today I'm going to look at the ADPs, specifically running back ADP, so far over the past month from January 3rd to February 3rd. The only website that I found that could actually produce it is fantasyfootballcalculator.com/ADP/PPR. It's the only place I've seen that has any sort of ADP for the season moving forward. Going into next year, I think it would be interesting to take a look at people who I think are too high or too low given the rankings that they have so far. First up, someone that's too low, I think he's drastically lower than he should be, is DAndre Swift. This website says that he is the 307 in full PPR. Let me just check round length real quick. 12-man leagues, 307. So in a 10-man league, I believe that tops out to be right around the top of the fourth round. And he's the RB16 off the board. I will say that his ADP has risen from the 408 to the 307 from January 3rd to today, February 3rd. I think that's way, way too low. Once he was deemed the starter in Week 10, he was the RB9 in points per game through Week 16. I know he did miss 3 games, but his average was 18 points per game. I say it every time I do something like this. I know it's not always the most accurate, but if he had kept that 18 point per game pace that he held when he was deemed the starter for the whole season, if he was given free reign to do that for full 16 games, he would have been the RB4. I know, not always accurate, but I like to give just an idea of what players can do with the heavy workload. And he's coming into this season with a brand new GM, a brand new quarterback, and a brand new coach, as well as offensive coordinator. Now, Dan Campbell has come out and said that aside from eating kneecaps and beating the fuck out of people with baseball bats, he wants to use DeAndre Swift in an Alvin Kamara type role, specifically as a slot receiver matching up against linebackers. I think that's nothing but a bright spot. Some people might say that's only coach talk. I think as of right now, the only thing we can do is really take Campbell at his word, and we'll see what happens when he hits the field. While his new OC, Anthony Lynn, helped Eckler and Melvin Gordon both hit multiple RB1 seasons, and he also made Kalen Ballage fantasy relevant for like 2 weeks this year. I know it was only 2 weeks, but if you can make Kalen Ballage fantasy relevant in any sort of capacity, you deserve a look in terms of what you can do for running backs. I don't think there's any reason he should be this low, as I've already said. I do think as we approach the regular season and once draft time actually starts to come around, he'll rise to probably the early mid-second in 12-person startup leagues. I think that's about where he will go, about where he should go, but I definitely think that he has top 10, top 8 maybe upside at the running back position. Real quick, if you enjoy content like this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to be uploading or trying to upload at least once every other day for the foreseeable future. So like I said, subscribe if you're interested in this type of content, all fantasy football type of shit, real-life football if it has implications for fantasy. So following up DeAndre Swift, we have another running back from last year's class, and that is Antonio Gibson, coming off the board at the 401 or the RB19, which is just baffling to me. He finished as the RB13 last year while missing 2 games, and I just don't see why there would be such an ADP drop because of this. He played through turf toe while also taking a little bit of time off because of it towards the end of the year. He has risen in a case similar to DeAndre Swift from the 505 last month to where he is now. So I wouldn't be shocked if Gibson rises into that early mid-third round come draft season, maybe even higher, honestly. He was 18th in points per game last year, so maybe that's why his ADP is kind of very similar to that number. But I really can see an uptake in usage coming from there. Jesus, when you care so much about a guy, you start to get flustered. Rivera has come out and heaped multiple accounts of praise on him, comparing him to Arian Foster, who was an absolute dog in his day, fantasy mainstay, always in that top RB conversation when he was healthy. And also, right around when he drafted him, said he had a very similar skill set to Christian McCaffrey and eventually wanted to use him in that role. I don't think there's a higher praise or better piece of advice or talk you can hear from a coach than saying a player should be used like Christian McCaffrey, especially when it comes from the guy who was Christian McCaffrey's coach for a few years. It's really, really nothing but high praise, and I think that alone should boost his ADP up about 4 spots in terms of running backs. Even with J.D. McKissick getting a large amount of passing down work, I believe he was second in the league last year in both running back targets and receptions, only behind Alvin Kamara. I believe the role for Gibson will be expanded starting next year, and that Rivera will start to amp up the workload given the praise and given what we actually saw throughout the season. After their Giants game, in I believe Week 9, he said that 70 touches in 5 games for Gibson was not a lot, and that he was planning to ramp up the workload. That's about 14 touches per game, if you're not keeping track. So after saying that, Gibson in his next 5 full games, not counting Pittsburgh, given the turf toe, and the last 2 stats here are after he was playing with some lingering effects of turf toe, were 17, 17, 25, 13, and 20. So 92 total touches. 2 games of that were when he was still partially banged up with turf toe, a very lingering injury. And it was about 18.5 touch per game average, which is a whole 4.5 touch per game increase. I know that doesn't seem like a ton, but like I said, some of those games came after injury. A lot of that was passing game work as well. There's no reason for him to be so low right now, and I do anticipate he will rise in ADP, but I can really see him becoming more of a true 3-down back next year, especially given what Rivera has said he can do. Finishing up with a guy who I think is way too high given a multitude of factors, primarily just who he is above. That's Chris Carson. He's currently the RB7 according to this website and the 308 overall. And he was fine last year as the RB19, RB13 in points per game. So high, very high-end, mid RB2 numbers depending on what size your league is. But there are a few red flags to me. He's never played a full season due to injury, and I believe his game total has slowly ticked down, not counting his rookie year where he missed almost the whole thing with, I believe, an ACL tear, but that was a few years ago. That could be wrong. He's going to be a free agent, and he might not be back with the Hawks, who have this bizarre obsession with running the ball when they have an elite quarterback and a young, promising star receiver, as well as a nice complimentary number 2 in DK and Tyler Lockett, and he is just way too high here compared to who is below him. You have guys like Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, and J.K. Dobbins all below him, as well as guys like Kareem Hunt. I understand there's the value difference between running back and receiver that I've talked rather extensively about, so I understand if you want to have him above a guy like Terry or Amari Cooper, but, come on, for the rest of these guys, there is no world where Cam Akers should be ever below him in ADP. It just doesn't make sense. I could probably run you a list of 20-ish, maybe 22 running backs I would take over Chris Carson. I won't do that in terms of boring you. If you want to talk about it in the comments, we can sure do that. But I just do not see a world where he should ever be this high, especially when you compare him to who is below him. I'm going to assume he was so high. He has fallen in the past month, I believe, from the 209 on January 3rd all the way to the 308, so over a full round drop, about 13 spots, which is nice. That's what I want to see. And I'm just going to assume, like I said, that he's this high because teams get desperate, people get panicky when they don't grab one of those top-end running backs like you should. So they're like, oh, I know Chris Carson, he's usually fine. The Seahawks kind of run the ball a lot. Let me just get him. But come on. Don't do this. Don't draft him over any of those guys I said before. It's embarrassing to have him so high. I saw someone, it had to be a joke. Let me check where exactly this person. Someone took him at the 112 in a mock draft, I believe. Even if you're joking, why would you ever do that? There's no point. And there's really no point, like I said, having Chris Carson this high. Worlds overrated. No reason for this. If you can manage to get Cam Akers below Chris Carson in a startup draft, in a dynasty draft, in a league where players named Chris Carson get double the points, I would probably still take Cam Akers over him in all of those leagues. Now we'll do more of a rapid fire type of thing where I just scroll through names and people who I think stand out and should be switched with other players. Josh Jacobs shouldn't be above James Robinson, DAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers. I think Kenyon Drake might be a smidge too high. He was really great on the ground last year. They have him at the 509, which is fair. I just think he's a bit too high given that his landing spot's a bit unshaky. Maybe he goes somewhere where the quarterback doesn't vulture like 12 rushing touchdowns every year. I think Aaron Jones as the RB 5, 6, 8, bit too high right now, given the uncertainty around landing spot. If he lands back in Green Bay, I'd probably keep him there, maybe drop him a little lower on my personal rankings. If he goes somewhere else, could shoot up, maybe in Atlanta where they intend to use him in a more of a 3-down role, use him to open up play action, pass out of the backfield, then he might go up a little bit. As of right now, I think 8's a bit too high. Jonathan Taylor at 10 is interesting. He's a guy that has certainly risen over the past few months from the 305 all the way up to the 203. Do I agree that he deserves to go this high or low? I think we have to accept the fact that Jonathan Taylor is certainly going to be a top 8 running back drafted next year. Whether you think he deserves to be or not, I think the promise he showed towards the tail end of this year and a bit of the passing game work he got, going to be possibly messing with his projections. Mack is going to be gone. Who knows if they still want to roll out multiple running backs. I know Sirianni left, and he is usually a big proponent of that, so maybe Taylor takes over more of a workhorse role. But for now, I think RB10 is slightly too low, but I'm not sure I would personally put him too much higher. Probably cap him out at 7 or 8. That's going to be it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed. So like I said, guys I think are way too low, undervalued right now, DAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson. I think we're just going to have to accept that last year's running back class was special, and anybody chasing that glory in future classes is just going to be sourly and sorely mistaken. I just don't think we're going to see another class like this for the running back position for a very, very long time. Rare influx of talent. Guys that are way too high. Chris Carson, like I said. Why is he above Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins? As draft time comes, I'm sure this will course correct, but at the same time, there will certainly be a person who misses an early running back and for some reason continues to take flyers on Chris Carson, who will have 2 good games a year and miss the other 8. That's going to be it for today. I'll probably pump out receivers or tight end or quarterback. Who knows? There's like 3 other positions I can do this with today or tomorrow. We'll see. All right. See ya.